Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the conference. We move into the final session of day one, and I'll introduce our next speaker, who is Roman Zhukov.
July 2023. Dependabot is extremely popular tool embedded in the GitHub and often enabled by default for developers to look after dependencies and bumping up the versions, updates for CVs or whatever. But it was reported that a lot of open source repos were bombarded by automatic pull requests with, this bot, Dependabot pull requests, that they were suspiciously similar to Dependabot, but with one exception. They contains the malicious code that get the developer's credentials. This is your open source security, not someone else's. August 2023. This is the tool that called VM Connect. That tool was downloaded 200 times before it was taken down. But the thing is that the tool was extremely similar to the legitimate tool that you can see on your right-hand side, VMware vSphere, that apparently has 45K downloads per month. But in this case, for those who downloaded the malicious tool, there was a malware incorporated to this. So by PI, that's all that we like and do often automatically. This is, guys, your open source, not someone else's. September 2023. Malicious actors crafted JavaScript NPM packages using their brands like Airbnb and PayPal, because they're very popular contributors to open source tools. But they crafted their malicious packages, and users were downloading these packages. But apparently, they contained some malicious code that's sending back to the command and control server some personal information. Again, this is your open source, not somebody else's. Welcome back, guys. Good afternoon. Let's do some epic shit today and talk a little bit about how to hack and defend your open source. And my name is Roman. I work for Intel, and I came here from Ireland, the beautiful country of Guinness Jameson, and of course the beautiful nature. So we're going to discuss today how to both hack and defend. A little disclaimer, so there is no confidential information today, and I'm not giving away chips, sorry. But rather, I'm giving a lot of practice, and some cases are based on true stories, but don't quote Intel, please. So this is kind of legal stuff. And let's get started. Let's shake a little bit and wake up this afternoon. Does your company use open source in production or somehow? Does anybody use open source? Okay, I see a lot of hands. Probably everybody else just, you guys probably forbidden to talk about that, right? Okay, I think everybody does, to be honest. Small companies, big companies, that is simple. Apparently, over the 1 billion vulnerable dependencies are downloaded each month. This is based on one of great report made by company Sonatype. At the same time, almost 90% of codebases contain open source more than 4 years out of date. This is kind of all researchers, and I think this is a lot of information we should think about. First, when we speak about open source, right, and why does that matter? We should understand or know where is the risk. And there are a lot of reports and frameworks. You can see catalogs, but this one I personally really like, made by Endorsed Labs. That's so-called top 10 open source software risks. They're well organized, so it's worth to look for you to understand what to focus on. Because often the times I see when company starts the journey to understand, okay, whether I use, consume, and build upon open source securely, they do everything in the one moment. No, you should focus on the essentials, on the risks you consider most likely targeting you. Then I would suggest to apply industry practice, and I'm going to give away my slides, and the links all are clickable, so I will better put it into Discord so you can click and then download everything. You must have a look at these two documents, C2F, framework and SALSA, of course. We are going to talk about SALSA a little bit as a good practice later on, but must have a look, worth reading these documents made by NIST, CIS, and CISA, also good frameworks. I personally recommend to focus on where you probably don't want how to start with. These documents would be the great starting point. And there are other portion of documents also made by some government bodies are good for the general understanding, and also that is really important to pursue, for example, your point of view as a security person or development or internal red team to your management, right? Again, all the links will be available, but this is my curated list of good materials, how to start with. Now, let's turn more to the practice. I think everybody sort of recognized this secure development lifecycle that pretty much all the companies at least should implement. Okay. Of course, Intel as well implements all of this secure development lifecycle from the architecture to vulnerability response all the way. But when it comes to open source, we need to understand how it fits to our probably established secure development practices in the company. And those, I would recommend to use this picture that I have made, like a, not really cycle, but at least some foils that is important, that are important to open source security. You see a lot of things here, but we are going to focus on the 4 areas, on the 4 practices: secure sourcing, secure development, build and release, and my lover topic, SBOMs. Okay, for each topic, I prepared to you, as I promised, 2 parts, hack and defense. And for the first focus area, secure sourcing and secure development, we have a lot of threats, let's say, on that part. This is kind of probably well known, but I would like to emphasize that yet again for those who think that that is not going to happen to you, right? Because probably you and also you on the back, right? You are all responsible, developers, security practitioners, but it happens because of plenty of things, because of automation, because of something, right? Dependency confusion, for each, I try to prepare the most recent cases, right? Dependency confusion, when it was fairly famous cases with Carapace, when it ingests the fake package instead of legitimate package related to Apache Kafka. Typo squatting, masquerading, when actually packages are misspelled with a typo, and this case is not too old, and apparently it's related to AI. Everybody talks about AI, right? So LLM, fake LLM models. Another threat here is Trojan injection and protest, where we have heard a great talk upstairs before the lunch about specific examples on that, but depend about the example that I mentioned lives in this category. Repo or package hijacking also is the very popular, unfortunately, threat. And the core package was hijacked over NPM account takeover. This is also happening. I mean, you can ask, okay, why should I care? Because it's, for example, it's solely on their responsibilities, right? On the packaging system responsibility. But remember the start of the session, right? It's at the end of the day, it's your software, your infrastructure, your applications in production, whether inside or for customers that's ingesting that stuff, right? Okay, let's visualize a little bit how that actually happens and what could go wrong with these main threats that I showed to you. First, this is a kind of a default picture, let's say, or diagram or blueprint when we have something malicious, right, like a bad code that is submitted to our own repo, right, we can have the compromise source, right? Then when it comes over through the CI/CD pipeline, we can compromise our build platform, kind of bad dependency that could be CI/CD bypassing, right? To branch out to some malicious actions. And actually, I will show some examples later on based on practice. Stay tuned. Using best package and etc. How to hack? How is that possible? It's relatively simple. I think for those of you, and I'm pretty much sure we have some hackers and red teamers here, where you could be familiar with tools like Weblyzer built with and others that can scan the target's website or portals or whatever applications and generate a report of technologies in use, or log files, right? Log files contain list of dependencies so that you can spot on as a hacker and then do some malicious stuff, right? Also popular but deprecated packages. That is also the case that I have seen personally. Poorly protected or expired credentials. And we will have that talk dedicated to passwords right after my talk. That would be brilliant, I'm sure. That's hacking part. That's all real. And better to understand how that's happening than to figure out how we're going to defend against that. And defending part, I just put for two buckets. The first of all is practices. It's better to use trusted package managers and ingested channels. Assess repo health. This is pretty much necessary right now, and later on I will show you tools. But for example, how fast this repo fixes the CVE, so-called MTTR metric, or how many commits they do, etc. Basically, the security posture, if you would. Do all possible verifications when you ingest all the packages, sort of zero trust, right? Checksum signatures, scan for vulnerabilities, even though you trust the package, because something bad could happen, right? I'm not a big fan of version pinning, to be honest, but for some reason it makes sense, but personally I don't do that. Latest and greatest, of course, continuously update. Curate and store critical components locally. Probably it's the luxury for the fairly big companies, but I think you can try to do that, or at least they're kind of a lot of open source tools, and of course also commercial services that can help you with that. I'm not also a big fan of the customized namespaces that's used internally, because it gives you a little bit a mess with that stuff. But this is a practice that I personally don't use, but maybe somebody does. And making package config audits is also often underestimated. Like we all have these configs, right, for pypi, for NuGet, etc. And who knows who make these configs, right? Probably not so often security teams just verify these configs. And tools. For this part, again, a lot of text and links. That is on purpose because you will have this slide so that you can click and see. For source health check, of course, my favorite one, OpenSSF scorecards. I personally try to contribute to OpenSSF efforts, which is a good community. And also have depth, chain range, kind of tools that can help you to assess the health of the ingesting repos and those packages, right? Use your local package management and native tools embedded to your source code management and etc. I think it's kind of the very much well-known term, but if you just enable all the security features in whatever GitHub, GitLab, or other Gits you have, it can prevent you from up to 80% of malicious stuff, right? It's just simple. Of course, for dependencies and CV detections and updating, I personally recommend this set of tools. We have tons of tools, open source, closed source, but that's I personally can recommend because either I use or somebody uses that I trust. So this is just in case you want to use these brilliant tools. Do you recognize what's on the picture, what this picture illustrates? Any guesses? Just a dummy guess, anything. I don't know, like CRM system, whatever, website, what is it? What do you think? Good guess, actually. Is it your company infrastructure? Okay. This is actually a quick illustration, different kind of blueprints for the SBOMs, right? Software bills of materials. And this is our next topic, because this is very important when it comes to securing open source software. By the way, do we have anybody in the audience who develop purely in open, in GitHub, like developing your own tools and do all development there, just behind the firewall? Okay, we have some persons. This is really brilliant because that all applies both for in-house development using open source and for open source development. For example, at Intel, we develop a lot of open source tools. Actually, we are top 4 contributor to open source, right after the Google and Facebook and somebody else. I don't remember, but anyway, we develop a lot of tools, and this is kind of the good best practices that we also can recommend. Okay, SBOMs, basically the case study, why it's important, and then we understand the hack part of that, right? This is a case story, again, inspired by a true story, but I think it could be a generic case. I think probably somebody recognized this nightmare that actually happens pretty much frequently. Vulnerability has been disclosed in the popular dependency you use, kind of ingest, whatever, but maybe you don't fix, maybe you don't know, right? Internal or external customers, it's based on your business, whether you do your internal infrastructure or applications or external. Ask, we are affected or not, right? Your CISO comes to you and say, okay, this is log for something. How much we affected with our 10,000 servers, right? Running all in the Docker containers, whatever. How much time do you need to assess and then mitigate these cases? This is kind of open question because answer depends on. If you don't have SBOMs, probably it will be an effort, right, to scan to figure that out. But if you keep your SBOMs for your software and specifically for open source parts that you are ingesting, you can execute third-party dependencies catalog right away, just in hours or in days okay, within the week you will be good. Okay, even for big companies. Ingest risk assessment details and affected info, or if you ingest or share this information like VEX, vulnerability exchange format, which is some kind of extension to software bills of materials that some vendors right now starting to provide to customers, and implement mitigations. If you assess where the risk, whether you're affected or not, you can implement mitigations fairly quickly. This is the kind of benefits, if you would, of having SBOMs, and the disadvantages if you don't have such. What about practices? Again, this is my personal reasons why. Actually, we have three kind of general reasons why we use SBOMs, right? For inventory of the components, for inventory of the licensing, and for understanding kind of outdated dependencies, right? Three reasons why SBOMs would make sense for you. Again, it doesn't matter whether you make your own software or you just ingest some open source to build something on top of that. Know what you can consume. It's useful for automation at scale. Let's imagine the big companies, right? It's kind of, you should automate. Otherwise, it's not gonna fly. Accountability is also a good point. I see that a lot, more and more companies started at least to ask their vendors, their suppliers, would you please give me an SBOM, right, for the software? And I think it will come to all companies. A couple of recommendations here. Don't stick to the format, just pull something. Right now, I mean, the SBOM discussion worth at least 2 or 3 days, unstoppable talking about that, but this is kind of summary, really quick. Don't stick to the format, just pull something. A lot of formats I reveal you a secret. Nobody understands what does that mean. I mean, what format we're going to use, how to check accuracy of SBOMs, whether it even makes sense to have a components. Nobody verifies that. We are just at the start of this way. Those just pull in something, right? And then at least you have an idea what you have. Then you can ask questions, you can make advancements, and etc. Validate the SBOMs, provenance, signatures where applicable of third parties. All the responsible vendors actually provide signed SBOMs, right? Or even with the provenance when it comes to SALSA, which we're going to discuss a little bit later. Create your own SBOMs. Probably some of you who deal with government, specifically with the US government, there is a requirement, right? When you produce something for US government or government bodies, you should be able to provide SBOMs, right? But you're going to create your own, even though you don't have government customers, because again, it makes order, right? It makes inventory, either for what you ingest or what you produce further inside or outside company. Leverage ingesting CSAF, as I mentioned, that is the format for responsible disclosure of vulnerabilities and the state of these vulnerabilities. If they're shared by vendors, do not hesitate to use these documents as well. A lot of interesting information down there. And moving from practices to tools for SBOMs. For SBOMs generation, just in case you're going to generate them by themselves, a lot of tools also available, both from the major vendors and from SBOM format inventors. But it depends on the languages, of course. It depends on the ecosystems you use primarily. So this is a good list of the tools that I could recommend. And on the right bottom, you can see SBOM verification tools. Like, for example, right now, I start to see the tools that helps you to verify S-bombs, at least whether they conform to so-called, for example, NTIA conformance, NTIA list of requirements on checkers. What should be in the S-bombs, right? And right now we have tools somewhere. Some of them are in beta state currently, but anyway, we still have these tools to verify, to actually answer what's inside, whether it's even an S-bomb or it's just a 100 pages spreadsheet, right? Or JSON. All right. Moving on to the build and release a little bit. And here again, the kind of case study and hacking part, also inspired pretty much by true story. I would say that, again, we can spend tons of time talking about building and release hardening process, but I'm going to focus on the particular cases that at least I don't see oftenly revealed to the audience. So probably really a small amount of people think about that right now. I'm going to talk about runners specifically, right? What's it, runners, right? Or actions, or CI/CD jobs, or whatever you call them, dependent on your tool, right? All of them, GitHub, GitLab, provides curated runners available at the marketplace. And if you check the documentation for all of them, they say, okay, this is very much relatively secure or something like this, but you know what I mean, right? When somebody says, okay, this kind of tool at the marketplace is secure, right? It's kind of who said that and who are going to prove otherwise, right? Self-hosted runners. I see some smiles in the audience, even in the dark audience. Probably you started to understand what I'm going to talk about. Self-host runners. All of the Git tools allow to use so-called self-host runners that are executed locally because of some reasons, because they offer more control to hardware, to end-user system. There are tons of requirements by some use cases that you may need to use these self-hosted runners instead of using the cloud ones, the default ones, right? And what is happening when you use so-called non-ephemeral runners with default settings? Again, it's all available in the documentation, and GitHub specifically suggests you to not to use self-hosted runners if you can avoid it, and use ephemeral runners and apply all these settings. But it's not the case every time, right? What is it, ephemeral runners? They essentially perform one job at the one time, like one job and killed. They are unregistered and auto-updated option is enabled by default, right? When the new version of this runner, it's auto-updated. That's it. In fact, non-ephemeral runners were not stick to the one job because any contributor basically can put some malicious stuff into your pipeline using that. And again, it's kind of based on the true story. When any contributor ever, for example, to your GitHub public repo, right? If they committed even a documentation part, something like a dummy commit, then they have a chance to execute these runners, to pull these runners into your pipeline if you don't have sufficient checks. Let's have a look more closely at the what could go wrong in this case, right? Everything, right? Stolen secrets, taking over permissions of workflows. Let's pretend, let's put it that way and simplify. This is kind of intersection to your internal environment, internal infrastructure, and that is possible to escape from this infrastructure, from the end user machine, right? where runners is executed and go over the network. How that actually works? Just to give you an idea, we have normally we have a developer, right, that pushes the commits, right, to the let's put it that way, to the GitHub SAS instance, right, for the corporate instance, which is usually in the cloud. And then it's getting to the Git repository. Then GitHub Actions connection to the self-hosted runners that are, as I mentioned, reside in the internal network. But this is the normal path. But what happens if the attacker pushes the malicious commit, right, with malicious workflow? So we are having the malicious runner here, and runner checks out attacker code back and forth, and basically if there are no sufficient protection, you can again take over the machine and escape from that and all over the way. So in this kind of real case-based scenarios, that was proved that it is possible to establish connection to C2C server, to attacker's server, right? How to hack, right? Because this is kind of one of the parts of our today's discussion. It's fairly easy, to be honest, because you can look up for GitHub repos in the public, right? Using the self-hosted runners, that is simple. You can spot on this runs on special command, which is embedded inside the runner, basically search. If it commands exist, that's most likely they use self-hosted runners, and that could be your victim. Then you can check for non-ephemeral runners. If the action, for example, checkout step contains cleaning the repository, it means that the runner is most likely non-ephemeral. Okay, and all over the way. So then you can basically evaluate your attack, try dummy PR to become a valid contributor to this repo. As I said, even you do some contribution to documentation, you are a kind of a contributor, right? And then off we go. You can then commit whatever you want. How to defend? A lot of practices, and surprisingly, I'm going to start with the classic ITsec. I have been doing security for more than 15 years, and I came from the classic IT security side, from infrastructure security, endpoints, ZM, security operations centers, you name it. And we return into these kind of quote-unquote classic sec measures here. We're going to isolate or build DMZ for your internal infrastructure, even though you just do some stuff in the open. So you're going to isolate your part, right, with the self-hosted runners using good old classic DMZ approach, right? Hardened access and token management also helps. Leverage Git permissions, branch protection, apply code owners, ephemeral runners. I said that. That's interesting. Prevent runners from approving pull requests. I have seen that a couple of times when actually our automation, like runners, they can approve pull requests, right, without any human interaction. Even it's a kind of production repo, something, just a main branch. I mean, that's insane from my perspective. Okay, manage secrets, scan binaries again for CVs and malwares. Even though you just already scanned for CVs your source code, you understand your dependencies, then when you build, for example, your binaries to production, you're going to scan them again. That's a good practice. And check supporting infrastructure script. I again have seen that many times when you forgot about infrastructure as code stuff. to scan that part. And also a couple of tools. As I promised for repo and drummer settings check, actually OpenSF scorecards now support some checks for runners, right? For repos inside. Secret management, secret scanning tools that should be implemented, of course. They're both important. I mean, secret management for the accounts and secret scanning, right? For detecting embedded secrets. Classic network security, of course, CV, malware, script scanning. I specifically wanted to advertise CV bin tool, which is made and open sourced by Intel. We don't have too much binary analysis for CV. CV is open sourced, right? So please check that out, and all over the way. And a little bit about SALSA, as I promised. SALSA stands for Supply Chain Levels for Software Artifact. This is a framework first built for understanding or provide the recommendations for builds, development, and other points. But right now, with the version 1 releasing into production, it focuses solely on the build side, right, on the build levels. And basically that means that going from the first build level to the fourth, you're going to harden your build platform, and achieving SALSA level 1 is not a big deal. Everybody can do that. Trust me, not even big companies, everybody, because it answers to the essential questions, what a correct build looks like, right? In order to understand whether could something possibly go wrong. Provenance is distributable to consumers. Provenance, this is an IT station part that shows you, okay, this is actually built by this system at this time, contains these dependencies, blah, 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 and then it could be signed as well, like the passport, if you would, for the builds. And tools for SALSA are pretty much on the screen, generator, and verifier, they all here. And moving forward, if you wanted to understand the future of these builds, hardenings, next step, think about reproducible builds. This is initiatives, I think, driven by a couple of organizations or communities. Specifically, OpenSF also drives it, right? Like reproducible builds to make sure that you can compare your builds and the golden one. Okay, now it's time to recap whatever we have seen today. Again, it can take ages to talk about how to harden the software, the ingesting and dealing with the open source software that you're ingesting inside your company, or just for your leisure, you know? But this is 4 parts I specifically would like to highlight. Be on top of hacking. That's why I had this hacking part, to show how fairly easy it could be and to show the real examples that actually somebody experienced, right? Trust but verify always. That is, I mean, this is the green line over all the recommendations that I have shown. This is for S-bombs. This is for ingesting from the trusted repos. This is verify every time what you are doing. Do what majority does. I mean, don't hesitate to use this framework and tools that I have shown, and focus on your risk metrics, right? And do what majority does. Don't just invent the vehicle, especially, I mean, securing open source is a big journey, right? And automate and oversee pipelines. This is crucial and essential. Often the case I see how easily you can let developers' pipeline just fly without any control, without anything. That's why we have these cases. And actually, this is a link to Intel product security report that we issue annually each year. This is the current one for the 2024. Usually we release it at the late winter, let's say, so stay tuned for the next one. This is how we do product security in general. A lot of good stories, examples, and practices that you can spot on and see. Please do not hesitate to use that. And before I conclude my presentation and show a little bit a bonus, just in a sec, does anybody have any questions? Or do we have time for 1 or 2 questions that guys may have?
If we have time for 1 or 2.
Yeah, thanks.
I was wondering if, let's say, I host my self-hosted runners in a virtualized environment, for example, like a VM or Docker containers, and if an attacker would enter the agent or self-hosted runner, is there a way to escape to the host environment from that, virtualized OS? Is there a way to escape from that, or?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think this is a broader question, and it takes us to whether is that possible to escape from container in general, whether or not it's related to self-hosted runners or it's just the container in your production environment. Of course, the answer is yes. There are many kind of options how you're going to that. Container security is also my favorite topic, but we didn't cover it.
Thank you.
That is completely possible. I have seen it many times, unfortunately.
If there are any more questions, could you please approach Roman afterwards? Are you here for the rest of the day?
And I have one last comment.
So it was just regarding questions.
Okay.
I'll just check. Are there any online questions? No, there aren't. Roman, carry on, please.
Okay. And I promised you a little bit bonus just to shake a little bit the audience and wake up. This is Open Source Security Index. I mean, this is public sites where they publish the most, let's say, popular open source security tools, open source, right? Without Googling, tell me what's on the first place. We have the Vault, Cilium, OpenSSL, of course. But what's on the first place, the most popular open source security tool? Okay, anybody else? Snort, good catch. Good points. 3, 2, 1. It is Metasploit framework. Thank you, guys. Have a nice day.